This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and they've done it again. OnePlus. You remember when OnePlus went from the OnePlus 3 to the OnePlus 3T several months after the 3 came out? So if you bought a 3, you were kind of like, oh, well. But yeah, it was a specs bump. It wasn't the hugest change in the world. Now we've gone from the OnePlus 5 about 6 months later to the OnePlus 5T. A more important change here, because what they've done is gone to that tall screen aspect ratio thing to give you a big diagonal 6-inch display rather than 5.5 inches. So for those of you who like that modern, less bezel look, I wouldn't call this bezel-less, just still an itsy bit on the top and the bottom, it's for you. Otherwise, in terms of performance specifications, because the OnePlus 5 already had that top-of-the-line Snapdragon 835, not much is going to change there. Storage, RAM, we'll talk about that. Same options, basically. So tall screen, and also they've played with the cameras a little bit. We're going to look at it now. So going to a 6-inch screen size sounds like it might be a big burly phone. Well, it's not. Here is the OnePlus 5. This is the 5T, and you can see they're just about the same size, which is pretty neat. So how did they do that sort of thing? Well, it's the usual 18:9 super tall aspect ratio thing, and they whack the bezels. They make them a lot smaller, so you've got more screen real estate. That's the trendy thing. The resolution is 2160 by 1080. So as tall screen phones, most of them have been on the more high-end flagship phones. Those are a bit higher resolution, but you know what? That's plenty of pixels. At 401 ppi, this is a nice high-resolution AMOLED phone, and it's a Samsung-made display. It's a good display, no like Pixel 2 XL brouhaha going on here. It's a perfectly pleasant AMOLED display. The one difference you can see is not the finish and the color. The camera sticks out. There's a bit more of a camera hump there. So for those of you who don't like that sort of thing, well, that could be a problem. That said, you're probably going to wear a case with it, though. This is anodized metal, so it's pretty darn sturdy, Gorilla Glass on the front. It's not like the world's most delicate phone. That's the good part. The bad part is when you have metal back on the phone, you don't get wireless charging. Also, for your $500, you don't get things like IP68 water resistance either, so we're not talking all the high-end features. And that's where OnePlus takes a chance these days. When they were $399 and $299, then it was like a no-brainer because it was so much less money than the flagships. Now when you're hitting $500, you're pushing closer to some of them, given that the Samsung Galaxy S8 is often on sale. The LG G6 is a bargain. So yeah, but they get enough of the stuff right here that it's still a good phone. For example, the display on this, it's a lovely looking, rich Super AMOLED display. They have a couple of different color tunings, including DCI P3. And then there's this reading mode, which is sort of like faux Kindle, the black and white e-ink style Kindle look. It's basically black and whiting the screen and warming the background. It looks pretty good, but it's a nice little feature. And of course, you have your night mode and all that sort of thing. And then there's the performance. OnePlus phones are always fast. The one thing that they don't cut back on is the CPU, the RAM, the storage. The specs there are excellent. You got your Snapdragon 835, 6 gigs of RAM on the base model, which is more than average even for more expensive phones, and 64 gigs of storage. Now if you go up to $559, then you can get 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. One thing to keep in mind here, this is a dual nano SIM phone, so you've got one carrier that holds 2 SIMs, but there is no micro SD card slot, so you get the amount of storage you think you're going to need because you can't throw in a card. Now this is an unlocked phone, no carrier commitment, anything like that. One thing that's important to note is it's GSM compatible. AT&T, T-Mobile, Cricket, all those smaller GSM providers. It actually does have CDMA 800 megahertz band, and it has several of Verizon and Sprint's bands, but neither of those carriers have allowed it on their network. With CDMA carriers, if they don't approve the phone and allow it on their network, you can't authenticate, you can't use it. So GSM only. That makes it a bit less versatile than something like a Pixel phone that's multi-band, or even the Essential phone, for example, or Moto's X4 if you're talking about more affordable phones with pretty clean Android builds. It has voice over LTE that worked on T-Mobile for us. Call quality on this is good. Pretty much the hardware is standardized across all of these Qualcomm Snapdragon phones, so there isn't a whole lot of variation. That said, though, call quality was fine. It was clear. You have one down-firing speaker. It sounds okay. Bluetooth 5 is on board, however, with aptX and aptX HD, so you can get higher quality audio over Bluetooth. That's nice, too. Wi-Fi with MIMO. You've got NFC here as well. They're still doing the USB-C based dash charging. It's a fast charging system, and Not the same thing as Qualcomm Quick Charge 3.0. I wish they would just use Qualcomm Quick Charge. That way you don't have to worry about the interchangeability of chargers if you want the fastest of all charging. I've met a lot of OnePlus enthusiasts, and that's one thing that they're not so thrilled with either, that you have to make sure you have the dash charger for the ultimate fastest in charging. That said, I have used things like the Samsung Galaxy S8 Qualcomm Quick Charger, and it does charge pretty quickly. Not as fast as dash, but it's still pretty quick. The display has ambient mode, if you like that. I certainly do, so you can see what's going on screen. It's got lift to wake, and brightness is pretty good on it. It's around 440 nits, which is average for phones, and is adequate for seeing outdoors, given the fact that it has fairly high contrast, being Super AMOLED. It's running Android 7.1 Nougat with, well, they call it Oxygen OS. They customize Android, just like many manufacturers do, really. This is Android with their little sweet tweaks that I generally like a lot on here. Oreo is coming in Q1 of 2018, and they do some nice little things here to make your life a little bit better than stock Android might. You've got a hardware alert slider on the side, a little knurled texture thing, which is nice, and you can assign what that does. If you wanted to do silent mode, DND mode, that sort of thing, you can swap your buttons around on the bottom if you're more comfortable with, say, the reversed Samsung method. There are a variety of gestures. You can control the status bar. You can choose from a bunch of different color profiles. It's all good stuff here. There's nothing that I would call deadweight or bloatware. Certainly, I've enjoyed Oxygen OS over the years, and they're pretty quick about doing security updates, too. Another change, like many phones, the fingerprint scanner is now at the back. Because they got rid of the bezels on the front over here, there's not enough room for the front-facing fingerprint scanner like we had on the old model. It used to be right down there, which I still find the most convenient, the front-facing one. But these low bezel phones, that's just the way you're going to have to roll with it. It works fine. It's very quick. There's also a facial recognition feature. It's not using any super duper fancy hardware here. It works okay. The one thing that I discovered is it's pretty picky, maybe for your security, though I'm not sure I would trust it 100% if you're being really secure with the phone. But you can't really look at it off angle. It really looks for a good match. But it is an option. It is available. So if they've changed up the camera arrangement on the back a bit. In the front you have a 16 megapixel selfie camera with f2.0 lens. As you might imagine, that's pretty high resolution, a fairly fast lens. It does a good job there. The rear cameras, the main one is a 16 megapixel with an f1.7 lens. All the cameras, front and back, by the way, have Sony sensors. You can visit their website to see the exact sensor model if you're interested in that. The secondary camera is now higher resolution, 20 megapixel, also f1.7 lens there, but it has smaller pixel sensor sites, which makes it a little bit confusing because that is for better low-light photography, according to OnePlus, and also for the portrait mode that's available on here. What they do is pixel binning. They take the pixels, best pixels out of 20, and they cut it down to 5, and then they combine it with the main camera. You know, in practice, I haven't noticed that it's particularly fantastic in low light, though. Granted, you know, I'm comparing it to some higher-end, more expensive competition, like the Samsung Galaxy S8, the Pixel 2, those sort of phones. But still, even the Essential phone with the latest camera update, goodness knows they've gone through enough camera updates, I found it actually captured a bit more detail in low light. Go figure, and the Essential's not known for the camera. However, overall, in good lighting, it is a fairly good camera. Again, it's not going to beat your Pixel 2s and your Samsung Galaxy S8 or Note line phone, but it's sharp, it's good. There's no optical image stabilization, though, so with video, it does use electronic image stabilization, which is fairly effective. You can see in the sample video, there's not too much bounce, even when I'm walking. Optical would be nice, but at this price range, I don't expect it so much. Portrait mode is fairly competent, actually. I was pretty impressed with it. You're going to have the usual challenges if you have stray hairs on somebody's head, where you might see a little bit of it messing up where the bokeh should and shouldn't be, but overall, it was pretty nice. It can shoot 4K video at 30 frames per second. It can also do 1080p at 60 frames per second. We have an example of a waterfall running where you might want a higher frame rate. More jumpy looking footage there, though, in that case, less stabilization. I do like the camera UI on it. It's pretty intuitive. It's pretty easy to use. It's full featured. You've got manual mode on there. So overall, for the price, I think it's a pretty nice camera system. In terms of battery life, it has a 3,300 milliamp battery, which is a good capacity battery for a phone this size. And given the fact that the screen isn't super high resolution, battery life has been really good. And generally with OnePlus phones, they are. Again, it's that lean, clean operating system. You're not wasting power on a million background processes that you're not interested in. I had no problems getting through the day with moderate use, actually, not even just light to moderate, but pushing it pretty hard. Now, I'm not playing Super Mario Run all day or something like that, but phone calls, YouTube, the usual stuff that we all do with our phones, taking pictures, shooting some video, that sort of thing. In terms of competitors, certainly there are some. For $100 less, you can get the Moto X4. You're going to get bigger bezels. You're not going to get that tall aspect ratio display, but you will get IP68 water resistance and compatibility with Sprint and Verizon as well. A camera on that one, we'll do a full review of that. It's not a bad camera though, actually, and it holds up pretty decently against the OnePlus. Then there's the Essential phone, which is one of my favorites just because it's such a gorgeous looking, really almost no bezel phone. And they've done so many updates on the phone that it's actually now quite stable. And the camera is competent, though overall I wouldn't say it's as good as the OnePlus's camera. It's priced about the same at $499. That one also gets you both CDMA and GSM, which means Sprint and Verizon, as well as AT&T, T-Mobile, and so on. Then again, there's the LG G6, which is a competent performer and is a fairly high-end LG phone. That one has quite nice cameras on it, of certainly a decent enough display. It's nice to have choices. It's a little tough for OnePlus, though, to have to fight in such a crowd of very good phones at these price ranges. One thing that I like about OnePlus is they make a line of very attractive cases that are very affordable, around $20 to $25 or so. We have a selection here that they sent us. And now you've got the faux wood, which I always like because it's pretty. You've also got soft touch cases. You've got one that sort of matches the sandstone finish that they've been using on the back of phones. Nice for the price. So that's the OnePlus 5T. Much like the OnePlus 5 6 months ago, it's an extremely likable phone for the price. $500 is a difficult price point to be in because you're not in the, oh, it's so inexpensive, I'm not going to worry about it. And it's not one of those really top-of-the-line phones where you're getting everything you could possibly get, and you might be doing carrier payments or manufacturer payments to make it easier. Despite that, it's still an easy phone to recommend. If you're looking for an unlocked GSM phone that's really fast, it has a lovely display with certainly enough PPI that unless you're Superman, you're not going to be able to see the pixels here. Pretty good cameras on this, ergonomically delightful. It's good stuff. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.